Do I look like a terrorist to any of you? Last year, it was reported in a British newspaper, not an Irish one, that Gardaí are increasingly concerned about up to 100 Muslim prayer houses, which they believe are being infiltrated by radicals. And yet the establishment threatens to jail us as terrorists for up to 20 years in jury-free courts because we're concerned about open borders that are inviting terrorists into this country. People, and you disrespect us, and you can spin that how you will. And lastly, can I just say something about our history? Let me say something about remembrance, seeing as we met at the Garden of Remembrance today. It's time to recall who we are, to hear the call of our ancestors, the powers that be. Now we have a strong spiritual connection to them, and it frightens them because our legends, poetry and song tell time and again how we rose up against oppressors who tried to vanish us. We simply must win, and if we don't, our children will fall just like the children on that statue at the Garden of Remembrance who are trapped there in stone, making their downward descent towards the ground. I wonder now, would that statue even be here in 100 years? And with that, I ask you to stand up and ensure the survival of not just your children, but also Irishness and all that it means to be so. Thanks for listening, and I'm an independent candidate for the Tala community. There are protests every Monday and Thursday outside St. John's House between 6 and 8, and the protest is actually tomorrow because of the protest today. Between 6 and 8 outside St. John's House. Thanks very much for listening.
I've been following politics for 35 years, and I've listened to maybe 1,000 speeches. I have to say, your speech up there today was the most authentic, passionate, powerful, and moving speech I can remember. It was astonishing to me. Who are you?
Who am I? It's odd to be asked that question, but because I'm a very introverted sort of a person, but because of what's happening in our country, I've had to come out and stand up. My name is Susanne Delaney, and otherwise known as Susie D online, which makes me sound like a bad rap artist, but the name was picked because there's a lot of targeting of you if you have the views I do in this country, and I was trying to protect my child. But I've decided to run for election, so I've put my name out there.
Where are you from in Ireland?
I'm from Dublin, and I run the Irish Inquiry with my partner Stephen Kerr, and he's running for Castlebar in Mayo. We're running as independent candidates because we don't want to be having
Is this for town council or what level of politics?
So it's local council. It's only once every 5 years, and then but our aim is to get into the Dáil, into government.
So that's what you would call your parliament?
Yeah. When I say get into government, we wouldn't be, in as a party, but we want to be in there because that's where you can make a bit of a difference.
And I wish you good luck. I wish you all good luck because it was so powerful. But let's talk about what you said. You talked about your daughter, who's obviously young, and I think the most terrifying thing you said was that in a way you don't want her to grow up because you don't want her to go out because you're worried about her in the streets of Ireland. Tell me that again. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so when I grew up, I would have been, when I was her age, that was the 80s. And life was different here. And I used to play outside all day long. And if I grazed my knees and came back in, my mother would wipe my knees and she'd send me back out the door. And my daughter has never played outside alone. Never. And where I live I'm not running where I live because where I live is gone. There's no.
In what way? Why doesn't she play outside? Explain to me the missing piece of this story. Why?
It's not safe.
Why is it not safe?
So this week, a man, a foreign national who was led into the country without checks, tried to take a 2-year-old child out of a buggy here, just up the road, and a 12-year-old boy in County Cork was in the toilets, and when he was coming back out, he was pushed back into a cubicle and he was sexually assaulted. So that is what we're dealing with, and 3 children were stabbed up the road here in Parnell Square. I don't feel at all like my daughter is safe, and when people ask for her to go and do things with them, like I have a friend who wanted to take her to a show, I say no, because I'm so afraid that there might be a terror attack or something else. So where I live is not safe. And I've spoken before publicly about the fact that my daughter is the only Irish child in her class at school. And I have nothing against these other children, but that's not normal. My daughter is the foreign national in her own country, and she doesn't understand what her school friends say.
What language do they speak?
So they speak various languages, Slavic languages, Pakistani, all sorts of languages. And I've never had any, they're just kids, But it is a sign of the times, and it's concerning to me. I want my daughter to go to school and be happy. And they had National Book Week here where they were encouraging children to read. And all of that week, every day they had someone come in and read a story. And every day the person who came in and read the story read it in a different language and not in English. So that is where I'm living, and that is why I'm not running in my area, because the people there won't vote for me.
Those who call us terrorists think they're better than us. And I'm here to defend our children, but I just want to say this because the lie has to be called out. They think they're better than us because they say they care about migrants. They support child trafficking. They support migrant children vanishing. And rampant prostitution in every single town in this country. These communist, anti-capitalist support migrant children being sources of profit for greedy landlords.
Why did this change happen to Ireland?
Well, I believe it's not just Ireland. It's a globalist agenda, and the evidence is there if people care to look. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's a criminal conspiracy. And mass immigration is a part of that, flooding Ireland with, Irish people have a very, very strong sense of themselves and their identity. And, we've 800 years of oppression behind us in this country. And I think they've come down particularly hard on this little country because they know we're going to fight back. We'll take so much until we won't.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, I've heard some slogans today, Ireland for the Irish, Irish Lives Matter. But your political class, I mean, there are some people who I guess you could call newcomers, but they're Irish. The people who made these decisions, are they not Irish?
They are Irish.
But the Irish Republicans, the IRA, or Sinn Féin. I'm from Canada, I don't know all these distinctions. But these people who, in my shallow knowledge of Ireland, are passionate Irish, you could call them even Irish chauvinists, Irish nationalists, whatever phrase you want to use. I mean, being Irish is the center of their identity. The 800 years you talk about, it's about being Irish. So how can people who fought to be Irish, who had a rebellion about being Irish, though I don't understand the troubles, but that was about Irishness. How can people who cared so much about being Irish then give it away? Because, sure, I agree with you that there are globalist forces. We're familiar with those. But at the end of the day, it was Irish politicians who allowed it. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. They're what we call a quizzling government. They're under the control of these people in the EU and beyond. The UN is another one. And I think what happens is these people are, we say, selected, not elected. We believe that our votes have been rigged here, or that people have gotten in, on the 10th or the 11th count of a vote. So they haven't been fairly elected, and they're, in my opinion, people who would never get to the top if it wasn't for the fact that they're doing what they're told to do. They're just self-serving people.
I have a slightly different theory. I don't know about vote rigging in Ireland. I just don't know anything about that. I don't know about your voting systems. It sounds like there's a multiple transferable ballot, the way you described it. But my theory, and you tell me if I'm wrong, is that so far there's no party willing to embrace this issue. And so even if people wanted to vote against this, they don't have an option. All the parties that have a likelihood of election are unified in terms of open borders. That's my theory. So I wouldn't, again, I don't know about the vote rigging here, I just don't know. But you don't need vote rigging if every party on the ballot has the same view on immigration.
Yeah, it's a uni-party system here. There's the appearance of opposition, but even over the last few months, that appearance has slipped away. You asked me about Sinn Féin, and that would have been the alternative party for people to vote for. But people have lost their faith in Sinn Féin. They're not the Republicans that they have built their reputation on, and they're completely for open borders. So there isn't really, you're right, there isn't really another party to vote for, but there's new parties springing up and lots of independent candidates. And I think if people are disillusioned, so a lot of people aren't even registered to vote, particularly in working class areas. But the people in the working class areas need to get out and vote. They really do, because they're not putting these unvetted, undocumented migrants into the affluent communities. They're putting them into my community. They say they care about migrants, but why don't they take them in?
Two more questions. Today's march was very large. At least I was surprised. And I would say it was a working class crowd, but there were people here from all walks of life. There's that Irish proclivity to use colorful language, but I would call the crowd very well behaved. What will come of this large march? Do you think anything will change because of it?
It's great to see people out, but it was a huge march, and when RTE reports it on the news, they'll say there was 200 people here.
That's your state broadcaster.
Yeah, and they will try to get their headlines. The last time there was a march, there was absolutely no trouble, but a few protesters went off home, and they were entrapped by the Gardaí or the police in order that they trapped them in a corner of the street and asked them to leave, but they couldn't leave, so they arrested them for that.
I saw no misbehavior, and I've been looking for 3 hours. I haven't seen a single thing.
You'll see the misbehavior from the radical leftists that were around the corner, a small number of them, but they were surrounded by police. I don't know if you noticed that, but that's not because of us, that's because of them. We've had someone drive through a crowd here and hit people in a car, and he was a radical leftist, and nothing ever happens to them, but we get called out for. We've been remarkably peaceful.
Last question. You've mentioned RTE, and I know the mainstream media or the regime media here is it's a clique, and they share the same views. That said, I probably saw 20 people live streaming or filming today, and I don't mean just holding their cell phone up. I mean having like a bit of a rig, like a more than just a selfie stick. Like they looked like serious live streamers, and I thought to myself, it looks like there's a bit of an independent citizen journalist movement in Ireland. I respect gript.ie. They actually have some credentials and accreditation, but I'm talking about there must have been at least 10. I would call them serious live streamers here. What is the independent citizen journalist scene like here in Ireland?
Oh, it's really after growing over the past couple of years.
Like, are you? I think you told me that you're in journalism as well.
Yeah, so with my partner Stephen Kerr, we have the platform The Irish Inquiry, which would be quite well known here. And there's lots of really good independent journalists like Philip Dwyer and other people like that. It's really a growing movement, I have to say. The mainstream media would have been here today, but they'll hide, and then they will try to report something negative.
Well, I want to say your speech today was amazing, and we're going to put some excerpts of it up, and I wish you good luck, and I wish that your daughter remains safe, and I wish that Ireland remains free.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Pleasure to meet you. There you have it. For more from our trip to Dublin, go to migrantreports.com.
Because it's gone to the dogs with the people in the door that want to need rescue for the medical card, but give it to a farmer for free. You're the ones stupid to make ends meet every week, and all we say is it's a housing crisis. It's an immigration crisis. When you fix immigration, you fix Ireland. We have our own problems here. We don't need to import the third war. That brings me to the next thing. This goes from the top down. And I'm not afraid to call them out. There's a lot of scumbag in this country. And it needs to